What's up? What's happening on a Wednesday? A little early here on the Hoffman Show. Anthony, we had to get one final segment in before the start of the NFL league year. That's why we're doing this. It has nothing to do with Nationals baseball. We paid off Russell, and we were like, no, you don't work today. You go home. I want one more segment in the worst league year that the Washington Commanders have had in a long time. It's almost finally over, Anthony. The new league year, it's New Year's at 4 o'clock today.
Woo! There you go. I'm happy as well, man.
I mean,
got Rooster out of here a little early. I know he's probably upset though.
No, he's psyched. He gets
or maybe he's happy.
Well, okay, let's be honest. If the roles were reversed and the Nats game started at 4 and we got the day off, happy or sad?
I will be happy.
Yeah, of course. This is the slowest day of the week for free agency so far. But there's still stuff happening. I'm excited to talk about it. Like, today's not a bad day to be at work. It ain't like it's July 18th, the day after the ESPYs when nothing is happening. Or even like mid-August when we've just had Groundhog Day of training camp. Those are the worst shows of the year. Worst day, I wouldn't say worst shows. Those are the worst days to do shows. That's the hardest lift for us. Today is not a particularly difficult lift, especially because we are leading you up to Maryland basketball at 6 o'clock. However, if we didn't have to work at all, that sounds nice. So congrats to the Rooster on a day off on a little Nationals baseball. And I got to say, Anthony, and we'll get into obviously everything that's going to go down and has gone down. And I think our big question for today is kind of what is remaining for the Commanders in free agency. And we can start taking some calls on that at the top of the hour at 301-230-0980. But like, and actually, I did something today that I haven't been able to do really yet, which is I sat on my balcony and took a phone call. Like, we moved into our new place in November, and the weather's so nice that I was like, I have an 11 a.m. call with somebody. I'm going to sit out here and take it. And then the most DC of things happened. A helicopter flew overhead and ruined it.
Good gracious.
I was like, come on. This doesn't happen most places. Why do we got helicopters flying?
Were there birds out there chirping, though?
There were some birds chirping, but those don't really ruin phone calls. I mean, they can ruin phone calls, but there was more of the hell. We had a get to the chopper problem. The chopper got to me. So we finally have one. That is the big story so far today for the Commanders in free agency. We finally got one. Jeremy Reeves coming back for the Commanders. Depth piece at safety. And I thought John Kine put this really well on Twitter earlier. And it's very hard to survive 3 coaching staffs in the NFL. And it's really hard to survive 3 coaching staffs when you're like an undersized safety who doesn't really have, like, yeah, if you're a stud, it's pretty easy to survive 3 coaching staffs because you're a stud. But if you're Jeremy Reeves, to have multiple coaches, Gruden and company draft you, then the entire Rivera era, and then Dan Quinn comes in, and there you got fresh eyes on everything. I think one thing that we've definitively learned the last couple of days is they did not like this roster. They thought this team was, they're like, yeah, no kidding, you won 4 games last year. And they look at Jeremy Reeves coming off an ACL, and they're like, you? No, you stay. And I think that says everything about Revo, what he is, what he means to a locker room. And it's going to be a very different locker room. So a lot of guys won't know him. There's obviously, 12 new guys coming in, plus 8, 9 draft picks. Like, you're going to have 20, and they're still going to sign 3 or 4 more guys in free agency at least. And we're not just talking like guys that are on the 90. They're going to flip half this 53. We should do the math later. But, they're going to flip over half this 53, it seems like. And if that's the case, to have a guy who's a locker room glue guy to be like, no, we still want you to be around and be part of the glue and obviously do what he does. He is a stud special teams player, great personal protector, and then sure tackler going down the field. I think that says a lot about who Jeremy Reeves is, the career that he's built out, and clearly a guy that wasn't a part of the problem the last couple of years. Someone who's a part of whatever good things happened here. But congrats to Revo, 2-year deal. He definitely wanted to come back. He made that very clear when he was on with Kime on his podcast a couple weeks ago. And I'll also tell this story real quick. Speaking of Kime and Reeves, I was in the locker room, locker cleanout day back in January, 800 years ago, 2 months ago in January. Can you believe that was 2 months ago?
It's a long time ago.
7 lifetimes, 42 eons, and 2 months ago in January. And Reeves pulled John and Nikki aside in the locker room. I think it was those two. And he's just like, I didn't eavesdrop much on their conversation. I just heard the beginning of it and realized what was happening and made a mental note and stepped away to let them have their moment. But Reeves was just like, I just want to thank you guys for the work you do. I've seen how you do the job, and I see, what you guys do. And I think you guys are great. And, I don't know if this is it for me. So I wanted to make sure that before I left here today, I said thank you. And I think that also speaks, to who he is. Revo is not only a guy who brings a toughness and an attitude and a togetherness to the locker room and to the field, but he is a pro's pro, and he shows it in a litany of ways. And that's just another example of one of them, of him taking the time to see the people that are sitting there with notepads and recorders and cameras and stuff as people versus the nuisance that a lot of players, frankly, see us as when we're just trying to also do our jobs when we go there in the locker room. And I would say this too. When I feel like I haven't planned this, obviously, but the phrase "pros pro" is a phrase I feel like that's come a lot the last couple of days too. Think about Reeves coming back. I think Fowler has that rep from what I know of him. Clearly, Quinn thinks the world of him. Biotish, pros pro. Mariota is basically coming because he's a pros pro at a super important pros pro position, backup quarterback. Luvu, I don't know if pros pro, he's just a maniac, plays with his hair on fire, but I'd imagine based off the fact that he's considered like the heart and soul. Like I think he and Reeves probably get along great. I feel like Chin's got a good reputation as a pro. Had some injury issues and stuff, but that doesn't mean you're not a professional. It just means you play NFL football and have some bad breaks. But I feel like that's who they've gone after, is a bunch of dudes who've been around the league and are well liked in the places that they're leaving. And the Commanders were able to figure out a deal to make these guys want to come. And I think this is the most important thing, and we'll get to this. Never read the comments coming up in just a little bit. But one thing that I think people are taking notice of is guys want to be here. Like, Ertz wanted to come back and be here, and obviously great relationship with Cliff. But you see guys like Chin. Like, Carolina didn't want to lose him. Or, sorry, not Chin. Luvu, Carolina didn't want to lose. I think Chin just was a mismatch. But Chin definitely had other suitors. And he's like, no, why would I go play for someone other than Dan Quinn? I see what he did in Dallas. I saw how dudes are balling there. I want to play like that. And I think that is something that obviously Quinn deserves the utmost credit for, but you also have removed the ownership barrier that used to exist here, that no longer is Snyder an issue in the way that he used to be, whether it was directly that people were like, that guy sucks, or two, kind of the stink of the organization. Febreze works. Actually, I don't think it was Febreze. I think it was an extensive deep cleaning, Anthony.
Nah, I think you put it perfectly. But also, like, on top of, players actually wanting to come here, do you also think it had a lot to do with opportunity? Because, again, you look at a guy like Dorrance Armstrong, he's sitting behind Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. Like, this was more so a situation where, he was in a situation where he was asked to do less, and now he's going to be in a situation where he's asked to do more. And then you got a question like whether or not more is better kind of thing. So that's also what I've been looking at. A lot of the guys, not to say, Aluvu, he's been in a place where he can, take on the role that he's going to take on here. But some of the other guys, I just think of opportunity and them just more so just being an upgrade over what we previously had.
For sure. Yeah, no, I think opportunity is big, but I would say that there's opportunities in a lot of places. Like, there's more opportunity here than maybe anywhere, because this is what happens when you have one staff and personnel group that comes in and doesn't like the decisions the previous staff made. Yeah. And it is kind of funny because it makes you wonder about, because they haven't flipped their scouts, remember. Peters, and then obviously, what's his name? Lance Newworth, I think is the name of the assistant GM. I think I have that right. And there's been a couple other guys. Like, Martin Mayhew's still sitting there like, yeah, I was involved in picking some of those guys. Marty Herney's walking around being like, yeah, I advised that or picked that. But it shows to show you the value of the top decision maker, right? All scouts do, the good ones, is give you information and get that correct. This is what we think of, not this player is like he's good or bad. That's part of it. But it's actually more complex than that, right? It's he does this well, he doesn't do this well. This could probably be coached up. This probably can't. This happens because of this reason. And there's kind of that film element to the scouting. Then there's, can you get the background and, like, do you have the relationships? There's like evaluation and then scouting, if you will, if you want to divide them into two categories. And then you present your information to, and maybe a recommendation to the lead decision maker, which for the last 4 years was Ron Rivera. Marty Herney had a huge impact, and Martin Mayhew obviously had a big one too as the GM. But then it's up to the coaches to use that information, make decisions once you get the guys in-house and, like, what you actually want to do with them. And they were so clearly bad at taking the information and using it and getting the best out of players. And they clearly didn't interpret the information correctly to begin with, because they didn't bring in good players based off the fact that they have flipped this roster in a massive way. You're now seeing, again, we're going to see like 20-plus guys. They're almost going to flip half this roster by the time all the draft picks get in here and, got guys going in. I mean, they flipped the freaking kicker and the long snapper. Now, granted, the long snapper was a bit of a point of contention in the previous regime. And kicker was a bit of a silly problem because Dustin Hopkins was very good and continued to be very good when he left, and they cut him after a bad couple of weeks. And then remember when they signed Chris Blewett?
Yeah, and then there were so many jokes. Oh, Chris blew it. Like,
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The kicker's name was Blewett. It should have been a sign. And if that wasn't a good enough sign, he hadn't kicked since I was in college.
Yeah.
I think was the stat. Insanity. Never kicked in the NFL. And they were like, yeah, that's the guy. And then they eventually get Sly, who was pretty darn good. Touchback machine, great from distance, not so good closer in. McManus, the guy they bring in, is a bit more accurate than Joey Sly. Also, the PATs haven't been an issue for him like they have been for Sly.
Do you think his inefficient or inaccuracy beyond 50 is a concern, though?
Yeah. I would like a kicker. I mean, I think we saw in the Super Bowl how valuable it is to have a dude who can lace it from 50 plus.
Yeah.
But missing extra points is also bad.
Yeah.
So, I'll take the I don't know. Figure out kicker later. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on kicker. But the point is, like, they flipped everybody.
Yeah.
And they're not done yet. So that is actually kind of where I want to go next. And we can take some calls on this too. 301-230-0980. What do you still want to see from the Commanders in free agency? It can be a specific guy. It can be a position. We certainly have some thoughts on both. And Ant, maybe we'll pull up a best available list and we can run through that too. But let's start with the calls. 301-230-0980. Lynnell popping in for whatever segment we do with Lynnell now that needs a new name at 4:30. And then we're only on till 6, so a bit of a fun final hour as well. Probably never read the comments right at 5 o'clock. So kind of a remixed show on a Wednesday here on the Team 980.
You can listen to the Team 980.
That's right. The 2024 NFL League year is underway, which means you will start to see official announcements and signings on your Twitter feeds and wherever else around the NFL. Trades can officially go down, and then you got obviously all the signings. Guys actually have to sign the contract before the team can announce it, so don't expect a flurry of moves now. Commanders can have a bunch of guys fly in tonight, so I would expect signings, press conferences, interviews, all that kind of stuff. Guys being able to talk about why they chose Dan Quinn, Adam Peters, and company over the next couple of days. The exception to that is a guy like Zach Ertz, who is already signed because he was a free agent going into the 2024 league year. So he is all set, signed, sealed, and delivered. Jeremy Reeves could certainly walk over to the facility, or I'd probably drive. I don't know how close he lives. A lot of those guys live in Ashburn, but nobody necessarily wants to walk. It is a lovely day. Maybe he'll walk over, sign his contract, etc. Also, they make digital contracts now. I think all of us at this point have signed a contract of some kind on an iPad. So that's the deal. Happy New Year. 2024 NFL League year is underway. Official contracts and transactions will be going down and bombarding your social media feeds shortly. As for us here on the radio show, welcome in. If you were just joining us, we were on a little bit early today thanks to Nats baseball here on the Team 980. We'll carry a couple games throughout the rest of the spring and throughout the regular season when there are conflicts or other situations over on 106.7 The Fan. Of course, your home for the Nats. We got the Wizards here on the Team 980 and Maryland Hoops, which will be what we give way to tonight. Early show for us, started early, ending early, ends at 6 p.m. for the Terps in the Big Ten tournament. And then depending on how they do, our shows will be a mess for the next couple of days. But happy to be with you as the league year gets underway. And Anthony, for all that has been done by the Washington Commanders, there is still work to do. And I would say the good news is the positions that I think Washington needs to still address in free agency, there are lots of options, and those markets are moving particularly slowly. 301-230-0980 is the phone number. Where would you like to see Washington make some moves over the next couple of days so that they are best positioned to not have any real needs going into the NFL draft? Not to say they don't need to take high-level players that will be the cornerstones, blue chippers of the future. But I think what you don't want is to feel like you need to take a high number of players. So let me give you an example, right? If you go into this season with your roster veteran-wise as it is right now, which they won't, but let's pretend, you need to kind of come out of that first 3 rounds probably taking all 5 picks that you got. You need another edge player or 2. You need another corner or 2. You need 2 or 3 wide receivers. You need a corner. You need, with Revo, maybe you're okay at safety, but you probably would like one more, depending on what you think of some of the young, super end of roster guys. And look, there's phase 2 of free agency as well. Post-draft, guys that'll be around. I mean, a guy like Terrell Burgess was great for them last year as an emergency fill-in for Reeves. He and other guys at that caliber are still available. So there are definitely moves you would still make. But I think that right now you're like, shoot, we need a tackle. They don't have a starting left tackle right now. So they need a tackle, and they probably need depth pieces as well in the draft. You need to get another edge. You need to get a corner. And so those, multiple receivers. So you want those to be high-level players that can play their positions, not just start on special teams and work their way in. If you sign a left tackle, let's say they get Tyron Smith or David Bakhtiari or one of the other tackles that is out there, and maybe even a veteran backup as well, and you're sitting there at the mid-20s and a guy that you love has fallen, you feel pretty good packaging, 67 and 36 to get up to 21. And yeah, you cost yourself a 3rd rounder, but you get a 2nd first rounder. I'm down for that. Right now, I still think they have work to do to get there, but they're very close. They're very close to making that happen. And I think that that's really exciting because, for all of the solidity that they have, I think, done for themselves over these last couple of days in terms of signing really solid football players They don't have needle movers because that's not the kind of guys that were available and mostly in this free agent class. And the draft is where you're ultimately going to get them.
I got a quick question before I give you my answer to your question.
All right.
Are you going into the draft? Are you a team's needs or best player available? And you might have answered it. I was on the phone.
Yeah, you were doing your the other part of your job, and you got more calls looking to get there. So tell you what, I will answer your question as you hit more of the phones, and then I will get to the phones because that's what we promised. The 301-230-0980. I think kind of what I'm saying is this opens you up to take the best player available. Obviously, 2, quarterback. Okay, fine. And you'd assume that the best player available there, weighted by position, is going to be a quarterback. I think we all see that Marvin Harrison Jr. and some of these receivers and maybe Joe Alt is a better player, but your hope is that you surrounded Drake May or Jaden Daniels with tremendous talent and good scheme and get them in a good fit, and they actually become the most important player in your entire franchise. So that's why you take them at 2. By the same token, I think once you get to 36, like here's the difference, right? To like cut to the heart of it with a concrete example. Let's say you love one of these receivers. Let's say Ladd McConkey falls out of Georgia, who a lot of people really like. I talked to one wide receivers coach at the combine who's like, we haven't gotten too deep as a coaching staff in this wasn't a Commanders coach. This was a coach for another team. And he was like, we haven't gotten too deep. I haven't studied that many of these guys, but that McConkey kid out of Georgia, well, I love him. Right. So let's say he's a guy that Cliff's like, give me that dude in the slot and we're balling. And for some reason he falls and he's sitting there at 36. The way the roster is constructed right now, you need to take a tackle at 36. You do what you need to do. Or let's say even all of a sudden he's at 28 and you're like, Cliff's like banging down the door. He's like, if you get me that guy, you'll be my hero forever. And Adam Peters is like, will you give me your hair secrets? And Cliff's like, yeah. And so he's like, all right. And you're like, at this moment, you need 36 and 40 because you need to draft 2 starters. You make a couple extra moves here in the next couple of days. You make that trade up to 28 and you go take Ladd McConkey, who's a bit of a luxury piece, but is a legit first rounder. Or you go take your I think maybe more realistically, you go take your tackle of the future. You go take a Tyler Guyton out of Oklahoma. If Talisi Fuaga falls from Oregon State, now he might wind up going top 10 at this point. His stock has been up. But one of these guys falls. Olu Fashanu, I saw a mock draft with him last week where he was in the 20s. And when this process started, Matt Miller was like, he's one of my elite, like he's one of the top 3 prospects in the draft. So opinions on him are all over the place. Right teams don't need a tackle. He falls. Oh my God, he's available at 21. Go make the move. Like that's the benefit of having this much draft capital. But you have to put a floor under the roster first where you don't need that. So what do the Commanders still need? Before I give my answers, let's get yours. 301-230-0980. 301-230-0980. That is the Team 980 listener line. Let's go to Kenny. Kenny, thanks for hollering at us. You are on the Hoffman Show.
Fellas, Craig and Ant and Craig, definitely excited about free agency. I think we need to go wide receiver. And when I say wide receiver, I'm not talking about a third option. I'm talking about somebody that can, I guess, the floor be a number 2 receiver that will push Jahan to the third receiver, and then he can be our De'Ami Brown, but still that same receiver can push McLaurin as number one receiver. I think tackle is obvious, but what do you think? What you think? They have to have a brilliant plan to have cut all of their tackles or have no tackles so early in this process. They must have a heck of a plan. What you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think they have a plan, and I think you're also seeing what's happening in the market now, specifically at those 2 positions, tackle and receiver. The market is getting added to, not subtracted from. There have been very few big-name receivers that have signed and very few tackles that have signed. You've seen like some, like Nwanu, the kid from New England who plays some guard, some tackle. He was a right tackle, not a left, but like he re-signed in New England, and you've seen a couple. But like Tyron hasn't signed. Bakhtiari got cut.
Right.
So, like, all of a sudden, these veteran types, the type of guy that I would be looking for, because I think that, Kenny, my plan would be I'm either trading back up into the end of the first round and taking one, or hoping that one falls to me. And maybe it's a project type. Maybe it's Patrick Paul, Chris Paul's brother, who's like an insane athlete, super raw.
Nice. I heard
He had a great Senior Bowl week. Like, he's not ready to play, probably, like, if you want to be good next year at left tackle. But you put him behind Tyron Smith for a year, and, like, now we're talking. Let him get coached up. Give him that year. Let him be a bit of a swing tackle, and practice behind Tyron, and take a lot of, by the way, starters reps if you sign a guy like Tyron Smith, because you're going to have to manage his minutes in practice. And so I think that that's the play. And because the veteran tackle market hasn't moved, and you're seeing the wide receiver market, no one's really happy in taking swings there. And I think it's probably on the players' side. The players are like, I want more than that. And all these GMs are like, well, the draft is loaded. Why would I pay you? And so eventually guys are just going to go like, okay, I'm going to take the most money I can from the best situation I can. And whether it's a guy like a Mike Williams, who just got released from the Chargers, or like Curtis Samuel coming back, I would sign up for that. And I think they're different body types, obviously, but I think the Commanders, because of Jahan and Terry, have some options there.
Craig, another quick question from your experience, being a reporter and everything like that. When you say the market is slow for the tackle, as a GM or as an organization, is that something that's talked about before the process, so you just chill on it? Or is it something that just unfolds naturally, that you kind of taking a chance on it? Like, when you say the market is slow and everybody knows it, how do they know?
It's a great question. I think that there's a lot of information that gets exchanged as these processes are going, right? So, and some of this does, like, I was never like someone who was a reporter on the level of like a Schefter, obviously, right? Adam Schefter knows more information about the NFL, and Ian Rappaport and Diana and Garofalo and Pelissero. Like, these guys and gals who are the insiders, they know so much because GMs talk to them, agents talk to them, and as a result, information winds up almost getting passed through them, but also privately without the media involved. GMs and agents talk.
Right.
And so as they kind of get a feel for, well, I want to pay this guy this, or, agents like, well, we're expecting to get this, they kind of understand. You get pieces of it, and the good ones know who to talk to and how to get information and piece it together. Like, being a reporter is actually almost part of a GM, except for you never publish your information. But the information gathering is a part of the job, and so you have some understanding of what the market looks like. Now, with that said, if one team goes out and ruins it, and it's not a guy that you know or a team that the Raiders go out and decide they're going to pay Tyron Smith $25 million, and he's like, sure.
Albert Hainsworth.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the Washington has been that team many times where they've paid someone dumb money and screwed up the market. That absolutely happens. But you generally have a good sense. And also, it's an agent's responsibility, I think, to be honest with the general manager of like, we're going to be patient, or like, we're looking to sign immediately. Different guys want different things. If someone's made their money, they might be willing to be a little bit more patient and wait till the right team comes along and then see if they can negotiate a price, because the situation and the chance to win a ring might be more important. Other guys are like, I better get in this first wave when people are spending, because you're not going to get paid later in free agency, and this is my first big contract after my rookie deal. So it just matters on the guy, and those conversations, I would say, are ongoing. A lot of them, frankly, start at the combine when everyone's in person, and lots of meetings happen at bars and restaurants and over dinners or in the hallways there in Indy. But these guys are also the agents, the GMs, the assistant GMs are all at the Senior Bowl and a lot of these events around the scouting calendar as well. And so a lot of these conversations are ongoing. So the information gathering, I would say, is the baseline answer to your question.
Thanks, Craig. Appreciate
Yeah, absolutely. Great call. Great questions there from Kenny. Your calls, your questions, your thoughts, your takes, your opinions, welcome as well. 301-230-0980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980 and always live on the free Odyssey app. Team 980 listener line is 301-230-0980 in Wale's District of Columbia. What's up on a Wednesday? Lynnell popping in studio with us, coming up in just a few minutes. Right now, though, we continue taking your calls. 301-230-0980, again, is the phone number. Anthony, did I answer your question, by the way? Did I answer best player available versus need to your satisfaction?
So in the process of you answering my question, I was fielding another call. I was fielding actually Kenny's call.
Oh, but Kenny was a great call.
Yes. But I think I heard the gist of it at the end.
Basically, the point, like, free agency is for needs, draft is for best player available.
Uh-huh.
Like, I just think that's a good team building strategy. And let's play it out, right? Kansas City Chiefs. Kelsey, Mahomes, Chris Jones, like, all them dudes drafted. Other teams that were good last year. Like Miami brings in Tyreek, but Tua, Wilkins, who's now gone, Waddle, like most of them dudes are drafted. Buffalo, bunch of them dudes were drafted. Buffalo did on defense like bring in a fair amount of free agents, but certainly Josh Allen, he's the centerpiece. Like the blue chippers of the blue chip are drafted, and part of that is just like kind of an obvious thing, which is unless you do what Miami did, where you got yourself in a bad way with the cap, and you have to cut a dude like Christian Wilkins, who's a stud, right? Wilkins is really good. It's unfortunate that in a year where they have so much space, cap-wise, the Commanders talking about, that the best position, arguably, in terms of true like blue chip players was probably defensive tackle. There just weren't a lot of like defensive ends, left tackles, etc. Obviously, Kirk at quarterback. Like I don't know that he's a blue chipper, but he's really good when he's healthy. But 36 coming off an Achilles, like whatever. And it's like, I would have loved to spend money on Christian Wilkins, but you don't need it because you spent money on Daron Payne and John Allen, and that's kind of the point. Blue chip guys, generally speaking, don't get to free agency because teams die for them, and then once you have them, you don't let them go. So I think in that way, like that's the answer to the question, right? Is like you're not looking for your blue chip guys in free agency because they very rarely actually get there. Like there is just like occasionally you can get them via trade, which is going to cost you a lot of draft capital. But true free agency, most blue chippers don't get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think that answers my question, and I needed your answer just because that's my whole thought process. In trying to answer your question. And to be honest, like I think left tackle is or right tackle is obvious, but outside of that position, I would want to see us sort of kind of make a splash at receiver or DB. I'm not sure if, going the veteran route is what they're necessarily looking for, but we have seemed to sign a decent amount of guys to like a one-year deal just to, get that floor that you're talking about. So I wouldn't be surprised if we went and got a Stephon Gilmore or he's familiar with Jordan Lewis or someone of that nature. Or even B-Wags, just saying.
But who?
B-Wags.
Bobby Wags? Yeah. No, getting
But
Bobby Wagner would be great. I definitely think that with Luvu, you're probably not going after Wagner, but like
that's
they could play together. Build it a bunch of different ways. Like that's the fun part of this. But yeah, Wagner, Davis, and Luvu seems like one too many guys, especially because you're not going to play in base that often, and then I don't know who your strong side linebacker is, blah, 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 whatever. Point is, you're probably signing Luvu to play Mike and hope that he works with Jamin and go from there. But yeah, I agree. And I think JT does too. Let's go to the phones. JT, they're on line 2. JT, what up?
What's up, fellas?
How you doing today?
I'm doing good. What about you?
Doing good, man. What you got on in terms of what you think the Commanders still need in free agency? Sounds like you're with us.
Yeah, I mean, you look at our team. We need a left tackle. I don't know if that's Ryan Smith. I don't know Trent Brown. I don't know your thought. What's your thoughts on Trent Brown? Because when he plays, he seems to be pretty good to me. I think his issue is just staying on the field. and might not cost as much as Smith. But I would definitely be focused on left tackle, and then, like he said, corner. I would also look at tight end because Zach Ertz, even though he's his replacement, he's always hurt. So I would be also looking at tight end. Thank you.
Yeah, no, good stuff, JT. I think left tackle is the obvious one. Left tackle and corner are the two that, like, if they don't sign a vet here in the next couple of weeks, or the next couple of days, I should say, I'm like, guys, what are we doing? What? No, we got a hole over here. And there's good options. Like, that's the good news, right? And this is kind of what I was saying to start the show, is like, left tackle, the market hasn't moved. Has any big left tackle signed?
Not to my knowledge.
I don't think so. I'll pull up PFF's position tracker here, so I have this.
Morgan Moses he's a right tackle.
Yeah, Moses got traded today. Nwanu from New England signed.
Yeah.
Trent Brown, I'm like, he's hurt a lot. Like, Tyron Smith, at least. Tyron Smith is still, like, damn near Tyron Smith when he's healthy.
Yeah.
Like, I would probably lean towards that. I mean, but, like, also, like, Jonah Williams hasn't signed from Cincy. So if you want to go a little bit of a younger route, Jonah Williams is Tyler Biotish-esque in that he's played out his rookie deal. He's not amazing. Like, Williams was a super high upside guy coming out, but didn't really pan out in Cincinnati. And now all of a sudden he's available as a free agent because they're like, we can do better. So, like, there's options there. That's the good news. And I do think they'll probably wrap their hands around one of them. So it's not like you're all of a sudden seeing Bakhtiari and Williams sign and it's Tyron Smith or bust. You still got options there, which is great. And then, like you said, I mean, there's two Cowboys corners available. Jordan Lewis and Stephon Gilmore are available, who played for DQ last year. Kendall's still out there if you want to try to bring him back. Like, nope, very few of the top corners have signed. And frankly, the same for the safeties. I mean, Chin signed, but like
Justin Simmons still out there.
Simmons, Byard, right? All those dudes are still out there. So,
and then also Jaron from Dallas as well.
Yeah, Jaron Kearse. So there's so many options. Cam Curl obviously hasn't signed. So there's tons of great options, I think, at the positions they need. Tight end's an interesting one. I don't think there's a lot of great tight end talent out there. Guys like Hunter Henry re-signed right before they were set to become free agents. So there's definitely that is one where I think you go in the draft, though. Like, to me, if all of a sudden, again, another benefit of doing this right in free agency is you can go tight end in the third round of the draft if some dude that you really like falls. And I don't know that you could do that the way this roster was set up 5 days ago. And so that's the beauty of it, is you can take some swings on some high upside guys and hopefully you hit a couple and develop them over the next couple of years. By the way, there is a tight end from Iowa in this draft, Anthony. I can't remember his name at the moment, but it feels like that's the guy that they should take. Always take the tight end from Iowa.
You got to. They have a good track record of tight ends coming out.
Them's just the rules. All right.
Good is an understatement, actually.
Yeah. All right. Lynnell, I saw I have the screen pulled up. He just sat down. So we're going to take our break, come back. Lynnell, his thoughts on free agency next here on the Hoffman Show. Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. Linell Willingham in studio with us. Linell, what's up? Linell, can you turn down PC1 on that board?
Hello, Craig.
There we go.
How you doing?
And now there's no echo.
There we go. I thought I was going to blame Anthony. You know, it's an easy thing to do.
Nope. I knew what was happening immediately. Unlike earlier in the week when we had some audio gremlins take over the show. Good times.
Wow.
Good times.
Good times. I've messed
so
up the shot here. So let me
you just you can see for once, and yet somehow you're less in camera than usual. Anyway, it says that. By the way, TV star Linell Willingham, his breakdowns on DC News Now, and as seen on Fox 5, just you're all over the place. Yet you have not been on air outside of doing updates over on the Fan since free agency began.
Yeah, it has been fun is the word that I would use to describe it. I am overall thrilled with every last move that they've made, but one in particular, and we'll get into that obviously throughout the program. My favorite of the signings, I would say, is probably Frankie Louvu from the Carolina Panthers. I think he embodies that tough, physical nature that Joe Witt was talking about in his opening press conference. The way that they want to play football defensively is not for everybody. It damn sure is for Frankie Louvu. He is a dude that plays with his hair on fire, and I think he's going to make everyone else on that defense better. A huge fan of that move. I like the pass rush rotation that they've got going on here with Dorrance Armstrong, Dante Fowler. They added Cleveland Farrell to the mix as well, and Cleveland's a guy that you just want to have in your locker room, dude that's overcome some athletic adversity in his time. Pretty decent year last year with San Francisco, and it should mean a lot to fans out there that Adam Peters circled him as a guy that, hey, I want to build my team with him as a part of it. So I'm impressed with everything. I like the Biotish signing as well. I think you needed a veteran center if you're going to go with a number 2 overall pick at the quarterback position. But outside of that, man, I've been pretty impressed. It stinks, that they haven't been – I know they – and I'm blanking on the last name – of the pronunciation of the last name of the Chiefs guard that they brought over. But outside
Nick
of
Allegretti.
Love his story. There's a really good clip out there of Travis Kelce talking about him on New Heights.
Yeah.
His podcast with Jason that I think is just brilliant. But, kind of interesting the way that they've decided to go after the interior offensive line market. There's some big splash moves that were made. Robert Hunt got big-time money. We saw Dotson get big-time money with the Rams. So it's interesting that Washington's kind of stood pat there outside of the Allegretti signing, but I love everything they've done, but one move in particular, and I'll get your thoughts before I give that.
So I'm very curious to know what the one move is, but Allegretti, like left guard, fine. I think he can compete. Maybe they're intrigued by some of the guys in-house, whether that's Chris Paul or Sadiq Charles. Or
Sadiq just signed with Tennessee yesterday.
Oh, there you go. So Sadiq, that's right. Sadiq's gone, but like Chris Paul's still floating around, and they probably look at the draft and go like, maybe we can get someone in the 3rd, 4th round that's a starting caliber guard and let these guys compete it out. Allegretti probably going to be your starter, but like if he's your starter, that's fine. Yeah. But also you got to think of cap management long term. Yes. Spend big money now. What do you do when Sam Cosmi's up in a couple of years? Because that dude's a freaking baller.
Yeah.
The way he plays ain't for everybody. It's certainly for a Dan Quinn type of team. And so Sam Cosmi's a guy you're going to have to pay in a couple of years. And how much do you want to pay your guards, plural? The hope is that if you have a stud at right guard, then your center can slide left a little bit more, obviously, and help out that guy. And you don't have to pay your left guard massive. And I think the other thing is you hope you have a stud at left tackle. Like that was the formula forever was, Trent Williams at left guard or left tackle, Brandon Sheriff at right guard, and then you can kind of get pretty solid players everywhere else and have a great offensive line. You don't need to have great players at every position. How you play together as a unit is more important. So I like the way they've attacked that. I think, again, like Biotish, necessary for a rookie quarterback like that. Luvu, agree, love that. So who's the guy that you don't like?
And before I get to that, Tom Pelissero is the one that broke the Allegretti signing. He said that Washington's got a starting left guard. If they are handing him the starting left guard job, I have other major questions about how they're going to handle competition, but we know how things get broke. That's normally coming from the agent, so I'm going to ignore that.
Yeah.
I'm going to ignore that. The one signing that honestly made me angry, and I haven't been angry since the regular season after probably the Giants lost the second time. That was probably the last time I was angry about this football team. Why in the hell, if you are trying to groom a young quarterback, if you are trying to provide the ideal infrastructure for a young quarterback, why in the hell would you sign Marcus Mariota? A quitter. A quitter. I don't want that in my quarterback room. He quit on the Falcons. He was embarrassing during the quarterback series. He wasn't in it after he got benched. And think about it from this vantage point. If Marcus Mariota was so damn good or was a quality backup, the Eagles wouldn't have let Jalen Hurts limp around on one leg for 8 weeks and completely throw up all over themselves down the stretch if he was any good. So Marcus Mariota, I'm out on. I would love an explanation on that because how does he make this football team better? Are we kidding?
First, you know how NFL players work, right? You're a starter, you play, unless you can't. So the idea that they were going to bench Jalen Hurts.
He was hurt.
No, or yes, he was hurt. He was not injured.
Okay.
Right? There's a difference between hurt and injured. Injured, can't play. Hurt, can play, might hurt performance. But as a starting quarterback, that dude's not coming off the field. There's no way. Also, they were 10-1 through 11 weeks. Of course, that was like, hey, we just got to win one more.
So they could have rested him. They could have afforded to rest him. That's my thing.
I mean, maybe that's a botched job by Nick Sirianni, but like Jalen Hurts is not coming off the field. To make that any kind of reflection of Marcus Mariota is nutty. Like, that's just silly. And you know better than that. You've been around. You have watched the NFL long enough to know how that goes.
I get that, but why risk further damage to the biggest asset in your franchise because you're scared to play the other guy?
It's not about being scared to play the other guy. It's about that quarterbacks don't come off the field.
Yes.
Like, that is the whole history of the league. You have to, I mean, Pat Mahomes, think about him in how many playoff games now that he's got his ankles rolled up on, and he goes out there and he does the damn thing because he's him. And if Andy Reid is like, I mean, Andy Reid tried to pull Pat off the field, and he threw a hissy fit like a child, and then went out there and was great. And like, it's because he's the starter and it's his job. And in some ways, when you have that much money and that you're the franchise guy, like, that's how it goes. I'm not saying that you're incorrect in that it probably was the smarter and more prudent move to give Jalen a couple of weeks off, especially considering they were 10-1. But that's not what we're talking about, and that's not a reflection of Mariota. That's the nature of the league. That's not about Marcus. So that would be thing one.
Just don't like it. So the way I read the deal is it could be worth up to $10 million,
Correct.
meaning it's an incentive-laden contract. So I'm not going to nitpick about other preferred veteran backups that may have went for a little bit more of a cap hit, but I don't like it.
So,
I don't like it because if you're going to bring in a veteran quarterback, bring in one that's good.
So here's the other part of this, and I'm glad you brought up the quarterback series and Atlanta. And this is where I think if I was, and I'm not going to like pull the "you're a young guy, you don't know anything" card, but I'm just going to try to offer some perspective, right? Because I think you're what, 26? 26. I think when I was 26, I would have said the same thing sitting where you are. Exact same thing. I'm 34 now. I don't have children yet. I do have a niece who I adore and think the absolute world of. And if you remember in that quarterback series, about the same time Marcus is getting benched, he's about to welcome a child. And that time with a newborn is so precious that I cannot hold it against him. And I wish the NFL as a culture was more accepting of exactly what Marcus Mariota did. Now, of course, does it happen in conjunction with him getting benched? Yes. Does he leave the team if they're in the middle of a playoff run and starting? Probably not. But the idea that he was like, okay, I got benched. You guys are going with the kid. I get it. I'm going to go spend time with my child. I just merely don't have a problem with, because I think that time is so precious for a parent and a father and his wife and that newborn, that criticizing him for that is just, I don't want to say it's like out of bounds and it's impossible to bring up as a thing, but I just think that's really important perspective, that now as someone who's a little bit older and again, I don't have children of my own, but like I've started looking at that time and somewhere in the much more near future than it's ever been for me. And obviously having a niece that I've watched grow up over the last 2.5 years, like I just think my perspective on that is totally different than it would have been 10 years ago or 8 years ago when I was your age sitting in that chair.
And I completely respect you not crapping on me as a young 26-year-old and understanding that I'm not some malicious dude.
Of course.
I just look at it from the vantage point of, dude, you're going to pay millions of dollars to be an NFL backup quarterback. I'm sorry. You got to know what comes with the profession. Now, we see guys miss games because of the birth of their child, but they return. He left for the rest of the season, Craig. That's my thing.
But
why be selfish? And you people are going to get mad for saying that he's being selfish, but I think it's selfish to the rest of his teammates that
But he's the backup quarterback.
He's the backup quarterback, meaning he's one snap away from playing on a team that was fighting for their playoff lives during that year.
And if he decides that his time, like paternal leave is multiple weeks.
Yes, it is.
Right? Like in a normal non-NFL world. And the fact that he wanted to take that as a human being, I'm just not going to hold against him. And I realize that there's probably fans that are listening to us right now going like, Craig, yes, thank you for saying that. We need more people saying that. And there's other people that go, if I was getting paid what he was getting paid, like, sorry, I'm not doing that. But I just think that
I see it from the other side, though.
Yeah,
Craig,
and I get, to be totally clear, like I get what you're saying, because that is the culture of the NFL. That is the norm, that you sign up and it's part of the season and it is what it is. Yeah. But when he got benched, and I will also say this is much more NFL-y than it is human. Arthur Smith doesn't seem like a joy to get along with. And
so
those
probably a little bit of stress relief.
Netflix documentaries are not always the most journalistic. And so I also wonder, like, they're hella entertaining. I watch Drive to Survive, like I watch Breakpoint, I watch Quarterback, like I watch a ton of these. Their Netflix doc series are phenomenal entertainment. I have learned over time watching enough of them that, and also being a consumer of now, like I watch Formula One for real, not just what goes into the series. And I'm like, they don't always nail the exact, like there's a little dramatization for effect. And so I also wonder if there's kind of a subplot of Arthur Smith was a pain in Marcus Mariota's tail, and he was like, I can either be the backup quarterback to Desmond Ridder and have to deal with Arthur Smith, or go be a dad to my newborn. And he was like, I know which door I'm going through. Right. That's an easy decision, and I am not going to fault him. But I think he is a guy, if we're going to talk about why you actually bring him in, right? Mm-hmm. Forget trying to dispel the negatives.
Yes.
On the positive side for Marcus Mariota, former number 2 overall pick himself, has been through a lot, has seen a lot. Very, very good, relatively speaking. The strength of his game, I'll put it that way, because say that Marcus Mariota as an NFL quarterback is very good at anything is probably stretching it based off his career. But the strength of his game and what he's been doing since he's in college, that RPO, get on the move type of stuff. And so whether it is a Jaden Daniels or a Drake May, that is going to be a part of this offense, I would imagine. And so he's got a lot of experience, and he can say, hey, when I'm in the pocket and I'm looking at the linebacker to read him, or my eyes are here, like he can give that experience better than anyone else in that quarterback room. And there's a lot of dudes in that quarterback room. There is Cliff Kingsbury. There is David Blau. There is Brian Johnson. There is Tavita Pritchard. None of them have remotely the NFL experience under center or in the gun as Marcus Mariota. That is a very, valuable thing, a multi-year starter. And I really do think that that is something that we need to consider here and why he is valuable. Would I have picked Tannehill over him if Tannehill was willing to come? Yes. If Jacoby was willing to come, I would have paid what they paid Jacoby. But it's got to be a two-way deal, and that's kind of where I see the quarterback situation. They probably got the best guy they could.
So, and this is embarrassing that I'm asking this. Gardner Minshew, was he available?
I mean, theoretically, he was available in that he was a free agent.
That would have been the guy that I would have locked in on because he has all the same traits, and he's played under Mike Leach and really knows what they want to do in that offense. And I think he's had more success in the NFL as Mariota, even though he's not a number 2 overall pick.
Sure.
I think his personality would have been great for this locker room.
He's a hell of a personality, and maybe that's, well, again, this is a two-way street thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Minshew goes to Denver, yeah? Where does Minshew wind up?
Is he still out there? I thought he was still out there.
He's signed.
He's with the Raiders.
That's right. He went to, I was like,
he went
AFC
for
West.
a chance to compete for the job.
Correct.
Okay.
And so Minshew here probably doesn't get that. He knows that he is at the mercy of the number 2 pick. And the thing is, Mariota might wind up starting for this team. And I think that, like,
Can we go to break? No, I'm joking.
No, here's what I would say. Like, this is going to be awkward because I think Sam Howell is a better quarterback than Marcus Mariota at this stage in their careers. Yes. But giving the vet like the nod and being able to be like, hey, you're going to go do what Marcus did, where Sam might have a little more success, but it's going to be a little more wild and crazy. Like, setting that blueprint, thinking long-term, not just short-term, is going to be the play here. And it's hopefully only going to be a year or two where they can get some of the blue-chip talent in the draft, and they're really good. And, shoot, if they get quarterback right, if they get their C.J. Stroud this year, who knows? Like, this is the exact formula that Houston followed last year. And they could absolutely pull a Houston and, like, trade up and find themselves. If they want to trade 36 and 40 together package, it doesn't get you to 21. That gets you in, like, back towards the top 10.
And that's what I would be doing if I was them, especially if Olu Fashanu begins to fall, because it feels like his name in this pre-draft process has kind of been tainted a little bit. That would be a guy that I go up and get. I put that out on Twitter yesterday. Would Commanders fans be open to trading 36 and 40 to go up? I honestly, Craig, is that via the Jimmy Johnson metric that gets you all the way up?
I'm looking at
awesome.
I'm looking at this right now. So the 36th pick is worth 540 points. The 40th pick is worth 500 points. So that's 1,040 points. That puts you at pick 13 or 14.
Which is occupied by the Raiders.
Vegas and New Orleans.
New Orleans is the team, knowing that they're in salary cap hell. They just need as many good football players as possible. I would be running to the podium to do that. And you know this, Craig. There's going to be a run on tackles and wide receivers in this first round. I don't want to play that game where I'm stuck, at 36 waiting for who falls to me, because guess what? Probably fell to you for a reason. So if you identify a guy, Mims, Latham, that they're probably going to go in that 13 range. What you hear about Latham now is some people may have Latham as the first tackle off their board. So it's interesting the way this is all going to play out. Perfect year to need a left tackle. It is my number one concern right now. I know our colleague Chris Russell and others have thrown around the Tyron Smith idea. I'm all on board with bringing in a veteran that knows how to do things the correct way. Dan Quinn and company probably know him really well from his
100%.
time in Dallas. Like, I'm okay with that. I'm a big Corin Lucas fan. I'm okay with bringing back Corin Lucas and allowing him to either compete for your left tackle job with the rookie and the loser be the swing tackle, or however you want to do it. Not in the market.
To me, left tackle is a yes and position. You need a vet, and you need a rookie.
Yes.
And by the way, like, this is, I think that people don't actually look at the value charts and like realize, because there's like package 36 and 40 and trade up to 22. And I'm like, no, I got great news for you. You don't have to do that, because like pick 100 is actually worth 100 points. And pick 36, let's say, is worth 540. So you package 36 and 100, that gets you back to 29 on the back end of the first round.
Which may be where you can get a Jordan Morgan out of Arizona or somebody like that
Totally.
in that spot. So
Totally.
I'm on board with it. Based on the way the first initial wave is gone for them in free agency, I don't think you have as many pressing needs along the roster as you think. Frankie Louva was an interesting story in Carolina because he comes over after being a special teams war daddy with the Jets, and then they give him defensive snaps in Carolina. There's a guy that we just signed, and maybe I got a little bit of bias because he's a local cat and I know him pretty well. I think Keandre Jones, the linebacker that they brought in, is going to impress on special teams and may earn some snaps on the defense depending on what type of role he's given. So I feel like linebacker is all of a sudden not your most pressing need anymore, and that's where people thought you would go with 36 and 40. I think you trade up and solidify your left tackle for the next 10 years.
No, I mean, I'm totally on board with that plan. But also, like, if what's Peyton Watson, I think is the kid's name from NC State.
Peyton Wilson.
Peyton Wilson, yeah. So, like, is Peyton Watson a former NBA guard? Anyway, Peyton Wilson,
Yes.
he was like, of course. If anyone knows me well enough, random old NBA players.
That's your niche.
I'm your guy. But Peyton Wilson out of NC State falls. And if you've got, and that's the thing, like if you go get Tyron or Bakhtiari or Jonah Williams or whoever, and you have your starter, and all of a sudden that dude falls, and you're like, you know what? Everyone else we have on our board right now is tier 3. That kid's a tier 2. We think he's tier 2.
Yeah.
You take him, and you don't think twice about it. Like that's the beauty of what they're doing right now, building the floor, the foundation under this roster in a way that it hasn't existed. Any other? We got like 2 minutes left. Anything else? Anything else stick out to you from free agency or like a? Hey, what are they doing here or like, dislike?
I think they got to bring in another body at the cornerback position. I don't know
Agreed.
if they addressed that early in the draft. I just think they're too thin there. I wouldn't overpay for a guy like Kendall Fuller, who's going to have a pretty strong market amongst the contenders. I love the Jeremy Chin signing. If Jeremy Chin can stay healthy, and I love Luvu, if Chin stays healthy, he becomes the best free agent signing they had. He has got real juice in terms of rushing the passer, in terms of playing in the box. He can tackle. He can cover tight ends. I don't want him playing deep half safety. He's not some interchangeable cat. But he plays that nasty, physical brand of football. And you see a guy roaming around the line of scrimmage at 6'4", 220. It raises your eyebrows a little bit, Craig.
Yeah, for sure. The other position that I think they need to make a move at is wide receiver. Like, I think they need to draft one, which is the easiest thing ever this year. They're all over the place, but I think there's enough good dudes out there. I'm gonna throw 1, 2, 3 names at you, yay or nay, and assume like pretty low money on all of these guys.
Okay.
Josh Reynolds from Detroit.
Nay.
He's obviously got the Lance Newmark connection there.
Yes.
Mike Williams.
Yeah.
Chargers.
Yeah.
Yay, I agree with that. But if you want to go different route, instead of being like we go big, we go small, Hunter Renfrow.
Very much hell yes. In Cliff's offense, Hunter would be a 100-catch guy.
Yeah.
I don't know if he would get the targets, but
He's going to be open all the time.
right. Exactly. And that's where I'm getting at with
And
that.
I would also like him in the room with Jahan to be like, this is how you run routes. Like, you are savvy at this. Let me
yes.
teach you a little leverage trick. Let me teach you a little this trick, play strength. Like, that dude was money a couple years ago.
He was. One more thing real quick. Commanders fans may be upset at this. Zach Ertz, I think they want him to be the starting tight end, and they're giving him an opportunity to resurrect his career here in D.C. I don't know if they're going to be too much more aggressive at tight end. So there's that.
Yeah, I tend to think that that's probably true, but I also think he might have been the best guy on the market. Like, it's not a good free agent tight end class. That doesn't mean they won't draft someone, and they probably will. But if your tight end room is in a offense, by the way, that runs a ton of spread stuff with very minimal tight end usage. Although Cliff in his final year did a lot of 13.
Because of
three
Zach,
tight ends.
I feel like.
Yeah, is Ertz, Armani Rogers, and John Bates. Like,
I can roll with that room.
But don't
forget about Cole. Cole, he may finally get unlocked this year.
Maybe.
Ooh, I know
if
that.
Cliff can't unlock Cole Turner, then Cole Turner can't be unlocked in the NFL because he is meant to be. He's a glorified wide receiver. I just don't think he's that good. So
fair.
We'll see. They already cut Curtis Hodges, and I think Cole Turner's not too far behind him out the door. But we'll see. Linell Willingham, if news breaks, he'll have it over on 106.7 The Fan. And then when are you back in for overtime and such?
I got to be politically correct with this. If the Hoyas play as they've been playing all year, I'll be on overtime tomorrow night, 6:30 to 9:45 over on The Fan. If they shock the world and beat Providence, I don't know when you'll hear from me again.
That's the Ed Cooley game. I mean, you never know.
They got the belt put to their ass earlier when they played, so there's that.
Well, there is that. Linell Willingham, everybody, with us here on the Hoffman Show. When we get back, a special early edition on a Wednesday. Normally do it at 5:30. We're going to do it at 5 o'clock because our show ends at 6 because Maryland, speaking of teams that need to have a little magic to make the postseason, we are off at 6, so Never Read the Comments is next. for the final hour of our show. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We'll go thumbs up, thumbs down on the best available free agents for the Commanders at 5:30. But Anthony, normally at 5:30 on a Wednesday, we do never read the comments, but that's not really possible today because our show ends at 6. Maryland basketball in the Big Ten tournament tonight. So I say right now, we disregard all safety precautions, disregard all care for our mental well-being, and we dive headfirst into those comments.
We tried to warn them. They didn't listen.
Yeah!
Every week, the Hoffman Show goes into the belly of the beast.
We read those comments, baby.
Never read the comments.
Au contraire, I always read the comments. That's why this is fun. Your comments are on our videos on YouTube at the Team 980, at Craig Hoffman. That is where you get them. Anthony, are you ready, sir?
Sir, I am ready for
Excellent.
you to read those comments, baby.
You still, just in case, we made the fancy imaging so that Anthony didn't have to do that anymore. Just in case you were wondering, my man still got it.
Yes.
Anthony, a lot of comments. So we posted the full Vibe Check Tuesday yesterday. So we posted like 40 minutes worth of calls. It's the longest segment we post every single week as a clip on our YouTube page. And I even went through and I segmented it out. So if you want to go through and be like, oh, I wanted to watch that part, it's all there for you on the interwebs. And then we decided to post a call that we got later in the show because that entire hour of radio that we did yesterday, the first hour of our show, Vibe Check Tuesday, we call it. The vibes were immaculate. Anthony, the vibes were so good. We didn't get a single negative call. Every single person was between like pleased and pumped about what Adam Peters and the Commanders are doing. And then at 6 o'clock, Gary called. By the way, happy birthday to my friend Gary. Not this Gary, different Gary. Happy G-Day to G. But my guy, or not my guy Gary, different Gary, calls in. Gary was not pleased. Gary didn't seem to grasp a lot of, I think, what Adam Peters is trying to do. He was very upset with how the team has gone so far. And we posted that, and we titled the video, Tongue in Cheek. We found the one guy who doesn't like what the Commanders are doing. And here are some of the comments on that video. If you're a fan, this is from Daquan Bumbry, 8519. Sup, Daquan? If you're a fan of this organization, which includes me, you should not be upset about any decisions this team has made in free agency so far. We have no/little culture, no winning record, and we are close to getting bounced out of D.C. Just ride the wave this year and hope for the best. Which I kind of think is the correct floor of pessimism for this team. Now, look, am I God of Commanders fans' emotions? Certainly not. Certainly not. So you are allowed to feel however it is that you want to feel. But if I was a true fan, not an analyst media type that I am, with stone cold heart and no emotions and purely analytical sense, clearly I feel nothing. That's kind of where I would be. I'd be like, you know what? We were 4-13 last year. These guys are starting over. They seem to be doing a lot of smart stuff. And this is a year where you're not planning on being that good anyway. And if you are good, it's a bonus. But if you're not, like, okay. But we clearly have competent people in charge that are doing things that are being well received and respected. I'm going to wait and see. Gary did not want to wait and see. Gary was not happy. For instance, he did not like the Dorrance Armstrong signing. And what was funny about the people that tended to agree with Gary, Anthony, is like Gary, they just had things that were wrong. And that's why I got like kind of perturbed during the call, is if you just keep giving your opinion and then basing it off things that are supposed to be facts but are actually not correct, you should eventually be like, well, maybe I should change my opinion. For instance, Diver7799 says, Armstrong went for the same price as Hunter. Is Armstrong better than Hunter? Anthony, do you remember the contracts for Danielle Hunter and Dorrance Armstrong?
2 for 49, I think Danielle's was.
Yeah, that's a good memory because I looked it up to double
2
check.
for 49, and I think Dorrance's was 3 for 33 with a max. So incentives, 45, at the most.
Max.
With an
3 for
extra year.
33. 2 for 49. Now, we have said long on this show, math is not our strong suit.
Not at all.
However, I do believe 3 for 33 max is definitely more affordable than 2 for 49. Also, Armstrong has been reliable. Hunter has been hurt nonstop.
Yep.
So, again, if you want to disagree with the opinions of everybody else or me, more than welcome. I like to agree on the facts of the situation, and then we can form opinions off of that. So, for instance, when Gary the caller was like, well, I wanted them to take Patrick Queen, and I said, well, he doesn't play a position that they need. There's no place for Patrick Queen. And he said linebacker position didn't matter. That seemed to be the point in the call where I think a lot of the commenters were like, I don't know if I agree with Gary. Such as, for instance, B. Harris, 75, 78. Thanks, Craig. You killed that guy. I'm not looking to kill anybody. I'm reading the comment. He obviously didn't know what he was talking about. He's just mad because we didn't sign the players he wanted, not even looking to see if it was a good fit. This was pretty funny. Balown 003 says, give this dude a bucket of Legos and let him build his team. He doesn't deserve to build with actual players. Let him play with Legos, and don't forget his sippy cup. Craig, you should have just introduced him to the dial tone, but I get it. Folks, don't be this guy. Shaking my head. That's harsh.
That was a funny comment. It should have been one of the funnier comment nominations.
Oh, we got
Unless
a couple of
there's
those
funny
too.
one. Oh, okay.
We got a couple of those too. I'm going to read this one, Anthony, but I will say, moving forward, if you leave a comment and your username is user TL6KS3GQ8F, I'm not reading your comment anymore. You're more than welcome to comment on the videos, but if you are commenting with the hopes of making this segment, I'm never reading one of these again. But for the last one, in honor of user TL6KS3QG8F, I disagree with that, dude. I don't think Washington sees the edge. Oh, this was actually on a different video even. I was so geeked up for user TL. I'm not reading it again. That I forgot that we switched gears. So yeah, let's just say that there's a couple folks that agree with Gary. A lot of them are spitting misinformation on the actual players, and thus that seems to be misinforming their opinion. Not that everyone has to agree with me, but the majority does. That closes the book on Gary's call. On our chat with John Machota, the Athletics Dallas Cowboys reporter, he says, no, I disagree with that dude talking about Machota. I don't think Washington sees the edge guy from Dallas being a quote-unquote starter, and who knows what that means anymore with so many substitution packages in the NFL. I think they're going to use so many of these guys they got in free agency to use so that they don't feel like they have to rush a rookie out there before he's actually ready, a la Emmanuel Forbes. This front office isn't the bumbling front offices of Allen and Rivera. I both agree and disagree. Like, I agree with the context or the concept of this comment. I don't agree with the specific player. I think that's exactly what they've done. Is they put floors under a lot of positions, is the phrase that I've kind of been using the last couple of days, right? They have made it so if they draft a rookie and that rookie's ready, like, go ahead. But if not, we got a quality NFL starter. I do think Dorrance Armstrong will be the defensive end who plays a higher percentage of snaps than any other defensive end for this team. I think he is the number one defensive end on this team. He's a 3-down type of player. He can play inside and outside. And so even if you wind up getting a better edge in pass rush situations, you might move him inside and all of a sudden, have a situation where you got him on the field with Dante Fowler and some rookie edge rusher or whoever else you want to put out there. So I think that Dorrance Armstrong is a guy that will be the starter. He will be a part of a rotation. He's not going to play 100% of snaps or 80% of snaps even, maybe like Chase and Montez, certainly the 90 that those guys did for large stretches of last year. But he will be the guy, I think, at the end of the year, presuming health, that plays the highest percent of snaps. Anthony, I saw you make a face. I don't know if you're about to text me something. Is there breaking news?
I was about to take it wasn't Commanders breaking news, so
Okay.
that's why I didn't really interrupt you.
Okay.
But
Quickly,
Yeah.
and then we'll continue and never read the comments.
the Titans are signing Jaguars receiver Calvin Ridley
Okay.
to a 4-year, $92 million with
Woo!
$50 million guaranteed.
Damn.
Good gracious.
Good for Calvin Ridley. He's a good player, man. Very good player, like very solid. If he's your 2, I think you're in good shape. I don't know that he's a 1.
He
He's
used
like
to be
kind
a
of
1.
Like I think he's a 1B though. Like who's better, him or Terry?
Pure route runner.
I mean, but production. Who would you rather have on your team? Who would you rather be your 1 receiver? I'd rather have Terry.
It's tough.
But like I think Terry's at the top of the tier that Calvin's closer to the bottom of.
Okay, that's fair.
Right? Like he's a 1B. Terry's like a 1B plus.
Yeah.
Where like you can do better, but it's hard. I think there's the list of guys that's better than Ridley is longer than the list of guys that's better than Terry.
Yeah.
But they're not terribly far away. Ridley's also older than you think he is.
29.
Yeah. So
Yeah, he's
there's
a little
that.
old.
Tennessee, maybe they'll pass the ball this year. Okay, moving on. Speaking of passing the ball, got a lot of comments on thoughts on quarterback. Juan Dixon for MVP. Great handle. Shout out to the Terps. Please win tonight. If a suitable trade can't be found for Howell before the draft, it wouldn't surprise me if Howell remains on the team throughout training camp right up to final cutdowns. Teams usually get desperate for QBs right before opening day as injuries happen in training camp and preseason. I 100% agree with this comment. And it is easier to fathom this because Howell's not their guy, right? Sam is someone who I think has value. Sam is someone who I think is a quality backup and or even a low-end starter in the league, potentially. It's hard to know because he showed so much promise last year, but the scheme and how he was used was so bad. But I tend to think that they're not going to just move him for the sake of moving him. It's not like they're trying to kick him out of the room. If he winds up being there with Drake May or Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota, that's fine. You can have 3 QBs. But if someone offers you a 3rd or a 4th round pick, great. But they also have so much draft capital this year. Like, I would say this. Because they have so much draft capital this year, you don't have to trade him before the draft, right? It's not like you're desperate for another 3rd. Look, if someone is on the phone with Adam Peters right now being like, I'll give you a 3rd for Howell, Adam Peters should be like, yes, 100%. But if that's not the case and it's a 4th and maybe even a late 4th, you're like, we'll see. Because then maybe a team gets desperate and you get a 3rd or a 4th in next year's draft, start loading up the capital then, and it happens because someone gets hurt in training camp. I think that is a great, plausible, feasible plan. And I think the prudency of this front office has been that they are not going to rush things. So I think Juan Dixon for MVP. You are correct there. Chris Hall 9207 says, you think it's possible we draft Drake May and sit him for a year and start Sam Howell? Drake May has some footwork and mechanical things you'd like to clean up, and sitting him could be beneficial. I'm not sure it happens, but just a thought. I'm not going to lie, Ant. I really struggle with this question because I think here are things I think, right? And then we have to try to put them together. Here are things I think. I think Drake May, if he is the pick, is best suited sitting a year based off what I've seen because of the exact reasons in this comment. His feet are messy way too often. Now, if he gets in and he gets coached up and Tavita and Blau and Cliff are like, nope, bang, and he's a quick learner, and by the end of training camp, he's consistent, okay, great. You drafted a fast learner, and that's a very valuable skill at the quarterback position because you're going to have to learn some on the job eventually. Even if you sit, there's some on the job learning. Look at Jordan Love. Sat for a long time, had a very good year, but got better as the year went. That's fantastic. But I think right now, optimal situation for Drake May is that he sits a year. I also think currently I would rather have Sam Howell start if I'm trying to win football games than Marcus Mariota. I also don't know that that's how that's going to go down. That if all of a sudden they're like Drake isn't ready, that they will be like, okay, open competition between Marcus and Sam. I don't think that Marcus comes here signing up for that. And I wouldn't blame him. Like, I'm not, as a vet who can still play, like, of the top 45 quarterbacks in the league, Howell and Mariota are both on that list, right? So they're both QB2s. So is one of them going to be QB3? And it's a lot easier to make the young guy QB3. And I would say as an emergency backup situation in a game, I might want Mariota, like being my QB2. If Drake is QB1, I want Mariota as QB2 as the vet who's seen a little bit more and might be able to win me a game. And then maybe revisit in the week whether we then pop Sam over if Drake would be hurt for multiple weeks if he's the guy. Like, that's kind of the weird space that I feel like they're in. And this is where, like, I'm going to call it politics, but it's human nature comes into play. There is just a level of, like, personality management that is necessary. That's not frou-frou. That's not extra. Harmony in a quarterback room, in a locker room, and all of that is really important. And so I think Mariota probably winds up being the starter if Drake isn't ready to go and he's the guy. But as I said, I think Sam's probably the better player. That also might play itself out in training camp. Like, that's the other thing is, like, as of right now, that's kind of where I am. But if Sam Howell goes out and is awesome in camp and awesome in the spring and is clearly better than Mariota, and it becomes obvious, then they'll deal with that then.
I mean, the offense also might be more suitable to Sam than Mariota's strengths. So I'm in agreement with you, though. I think Sam, to me, is the better quarterback. But it does make that signing a little weird, going out there and giving, Mariota $6 million. But, again, there's not a lot of money also for veteran QB.
Totally. And by the way, they have plenty of cap space. They still have like $65 million at least over the cap, and Spotrac haven't put all the numbers in yet. But, like, remember when we looked at it yesterday, and they put a few more in today, but, like, they had Dorrance Armstrong and Frankie Louvu and some of those Biotish in, and they still like $79 million.
Yep.
It's crazy. So, like, I hate to say it, but I don't even really hate to say it. I'll just say it. They could cut Marcus Mariota in training camp and be like, we've seen enough from Sam. We think he's the better option, and he's mature enough that we don't really care. Like, they could do that, and the cap space is what it is. So, just something worth pointing out, I guess. Tony DeLeo says, or is it Tony D. Leo? I don't know whether it's Tony D or Tony DeLeo. Anyway, I don't think people should put too much stock in the Mariota-Daniels comparisons. Weren't they going after Darnold first? He's a mentor, QB3. Sam will be the spot starter if need be, just because it'll add to his trade value. I don't know if I agree with the last part, like from QB3 on, because, again, I don't think Mariota comes here to be QB3. I think he comes here to be QB2 with the understanding that if the rookie isn't ready to play, he's QB1. But I do agree that I would not put any stock in the Mariota-Daniels comparisons in terms of who they draft. Again, I was saying over the last couple of weeks, I have guys that I think would be great mentors for the specific players that they're drafting, like in an ideal world, but that doesn't mean they've tipped their hand. You're not going to, like, you got the cart before the horse there. So I think that Mariota is a good mentor for May and for Daniels. Different parts of their game speak to what Marcus does. The over-the-middle throwing that Marcus does versus the running that Jaden does. Because Jaden, much more of an outside thrower. May, more success over the middle of the field. But I think that Marcus, just like his experience in the league of being a high draft pick, being highly touted and having not work out and like maybe being able to avoid some of the pitfalls that he did in his career, that's super valuable to have in the room. And a vet can be super valuable to these rookies, and that's why he's here. Not because they were like trying to get a direct replacement for a guy they haven't drafted yet. All right, last couple here. Never read the comments. Oh, man, Anthony, I forgot my funny one. Or I didn't do it in the right place. I promised funny one to close it out. Anthony, I don't have a funny comment. We did have the Legos one. That was pretty good.
Legos one was really funny.
That was pretty good. The rest of the comments, not sure why you don't keep Brissett for $8 million. I think he's a much better than QB than Mariota. I agree. Unfortunately, Jacoby also had a say, and he wanted to go back to New England. Lyle Paradise, I'm glad that free agents want to come here and play for the team, not just collect an overinflated paycheck. It's a nice breath of fresh air after the last 25 years. Definitely agree with that sentiment. And one last thing that I thought this was a good shout, that we just kind of touched on, but Lofts TM969. One thing I haven't seen mentioned Ree Mariota as a mentor. He was also the number 2 pick and knows the pressure it brings and may be able to help psychologically more than in terms of football chops. So that was definitely a great shout. Good comment. Appreciate the smart comments and the funny ones. And I know we really appreciate all of the comments. You can, of course, leave yours on YouTube at the Team 980, at Craig Hoffman. That is where you subscribe for all of our highlights of this show on video, on demand. And, of course, we stream live daily all show long at the Team 980. When we get back, we will look at the best available free agents remaining. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Do we want them to be Commanders? That's how we wrap things up in our final half hour before we give way to Maryland basketball here on the Team 980. It is time to play a game here on the Hoffman Show. Simple yay or nay. Anthony will join me in said game. Free agency best available list has been evolving as players get cut. Anthony, you okay over there?
Yeah, my bad.
That's your I got 5 on it dance?
Yes, sir.
Oh. Looked like you were just having a moment.
Nah, the music got me a little hype, you know. We'll be
I think you're just hyped because it's 5:33 and we're out of here soon.
Yes, sir. Hey, look, you know me too well.
No,
you know
remember
me too
when we
well.
used to do this show 3 to 6?
Yes.
And then they were all of a sudden one day they were like, "Hey, you're 4 to 7 now." I was like, "Do we have a choice in the matter?" And they're like, "No, you work till 7 now."
That extra hour, man.
I was very scared of that, honestly. Like, I mean, getting off at 6 is great, but I think starting at 4 is better. You have like so much time to do stuff. I often felt rushed when we started at 3. 4 is a much better starting time.
Right.
And so, like, yeah, it sucks getting home late, and sometimes you don't eat dinner till like 8 o'clock. But you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I'm not going to complain. Our jobs ain't too bad.
Nope.
All things considered. Maryland Hoops coming up though, kicking us off at 6 o'clock tonight at the bottom of the hour. Anthony, do you have the NFL music? Because I think we should use it. I think that we should get people's. And this is like the Auld Lang Syne of the NFL New Year, because it is NFL New Year 2024. Deals can officially get done. Again, the Commanders are flying a bunch of guys in tonight. They probably wind up signing them tonight or tomorrow, and then maybe even some on Friday. So you'll see the deals come through from like the Commanders' official Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, et cetera, accounts. All the reporters tweeting the press releases. All that stuff will happen over the next, let's say, 36 hours or so for the 13 players they have already signed. But who else would we like to see them sign? Anthony, it's time to play free agency, yay or nay. I'm going to use the Athletics list. They have updated it as it is gone. So they have added, like, for instance, their top-ranked guy has NR next to him, as in he wasn't initially ranked. But the San Francisco 49ers cut Eric Armstead just before 4 o'clock today to get under or in compliance with the salary cap as the league year started. I think this is going to be a quick nay from me, not because he's not a fantastic player, but he's kind of a 3-4 end. That 5 technique, I don't know if he has a place in this defense. Maybe he could play 3 technique. Maybe he could play outside as a defensive end in a 4-3, but he's just kind of a niche player who at 30 years old, banged up. Like there's too many it has to go rights for me. I think some team should sign him, and probably for a decent chunk of change. But I'm out on Eric Armstead for the Commanders.
Yeah, I got to give him a hard nay as well, and for literally all the reasons you said. He just has a very unique, I guess, position. Like he's not necessarily a defensive end, and he's not necessarily a defensive tackle. So it will be weird, like, going up, you know, with the pieces that we already have in place. So I will be out on him.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Tyron Smith, 33-year-old, was their 21st ranked free agent going into everything. Played really well when he's played, but between 2020 and 2022, there were 50 Cowboys games. He missed 33 of them. He played 13 of the 17 last year. Obviously, Dan Quinn has the familiarity. Pro's pro. Would be back on the same line as Biotish. They already signed one offensive lineman from Dallas. Anthony, I am willing to pay Tyron Smith a lot of money for 1 year, a decent amount for 2 years, and then go draft a tackle that is going to be his understudy.
What is a lot of money?
18, 19 million.
Good gracious. For a 33-year-old with an injury history.
But it's 1 year. You get that money back next year. Like, do I want to pay him anything more than like 8 or 9 next year? Is that a big dead cap number?
Okay,
yes,
yeah,
but
that's
like,
fair.
Dude, if you get Tyron Smith for 14 games, he could be an all-pro. He's still that good.
If you can guarantee me 14 games, I'm super all the way in. But there's no guarantee in this.
No, there's not.
So it's a big risk. I will be in on Tyron if we couldn't get Jonah.
Okay, so you got a different plan to tackle. Okay, interesting. Let's keep rolling. Justin Simmons, safety from the Broncos. I think both of us were in on him at the start. For me, I'm out now that Jeremy Chin is in. I don't need both of them.
Yeah, I can be out now.
All right. The next highest rated player, I'm just going down the list. Chase Young, edge, 25 years old. Okay. Anthony has a violent head shake of no. I have a violent head shake of yes, as in I agree with Anthony.
You got me. I was about to say,
had him in the first half.
Yeah.
Guy who just became available today. Mike Williams, receiver, Chargers. Played just 3 games last year because he tore his ACL. He was targeted 25 times and had 19 catches in those 2+ games. He had a monster. I don't remember if it was week 1 or week 2, but he had like an insane week, and then next week, out. Health, big question mark. He's played a full season just once in 7 years. He had back issues entering the league. He's a big guy. He's approaching 30. But are you in on Mike Williams?
This one was tough. I think I will be in on Mike Williams. Big body receiver. When healthy, when on the field, he's super productive. It's just he's had really bad luck when it's come to the injuries. But also, he doesn't necessarily have to be a wide receiver 1 here. He doesn't necessarily have to
Correct.
be a wide receiver 2. If he's our wide receiver 3,
See,
cool. I'm cool with that.
That's what I see him as, is right. He's going to be a starter. He's your starter at X.
Yeah.
But just because he's your starter at X, the big-bodied receiver who plays on the line of scrimmage, you get to slide Terry to a Z where I think he could potentially be more effective. That doesn't mean that he has to be your actual number 1 receiver. Like, you can still have him be the 3rd, 4th, 5th guy in targets. And I think I'd also draft a similar guy and let him learn from Mike Williams. So I am in on Mike Williams for an incentive-laden type of deal. I don't want to commit any real money to him. And even if the incentives are games played or catches, basic stuff, yeah. A guy that I actually might like more, though, less heralded, similar body type, not quite as big, but big, tall, physical, had a really good year. Josh Reynolds, 29 years old, from the Lions. He had 3 drops during the whole regular season, but then he had 2 huge ones in the NFC Championship game. Size, big catch radius, not elite speed, but he's a guy that could be a number 2 caliber receiver. Like, I'm in on Josh Reynolds. I wouldn't pay. The problem is like, I don't think you're going to be able to get him because he's a guy that should get a little bit of money in like a couple years. And I don't know that I want to spend that at receiver.
Yeah, I'm going to say I'm out on Josh Reynolds. I like what he did last year in Detroit. I like what he did when he was with the Rams as well. But I think De'Ami Brown sort of kind of like fits that mold. I don't think he's necessarily given the...
But Reynolds is way bigger than De'Ami.
Yeah.
And like De'Ami's speed, Reynolds' size.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm out on him.
I think if he comes, he's a starter. Like, it's him, Terry, and Jahan in the slot. Like, those are your 3 starting receivers.
Yeah.
Which, I don't know if Jahan's a slot receiver. That's the other weird thing about it. Jadeveon Clowney, edge. Last year with the Ravens. He's 31 years old. He had an actual really productive season. If he's willing to come here and the money ain't bad, I'd bring Jadeveon Clowney in. That's the one thing they don't like. They don't have real pass rush juice. Now, my one caveat would be, I don't know what he's like as a dude. If he succeeded in Baltimore, I guess he's probably got the right makeup. But if he's a Dan Quinn guy, great. If not, then no.
I'm in on Jadeveon. I still think we need some juice. I guess we got a decent amount of like rotational pieces. And if we were to bring him in, that would probably mean no James or no KC as possible reasons.
I think they're already gone.
Okay, yeah.
Maybe Casey's more than James. I see Dorrance Armstrong as James Smith-Williams' like replacement.
Yeah.
You also got like Kyle Van Noy. There's some other edges out there. How far down is Jonah Williams? Got him down at 87. You're in on Jonah Williams.
Yeah, I mean, he's younger. Granted, he hasn't lived up to the potential that everybody, had for him or the expectations. But I like his youth, man. So I think if we get a guy in here for a couple of years to, like, still build, still groom, I think that will be better for us for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I think he's super interesting. Mekhi Becton, you want to go high-end talent, but there seems to be a lot going on there. But, like, is there a lot going on there because of him, or is there a lot going on there because he was with the Jets, and the Jets are a disaster?
Both things can be true.
That's true. Are there any? I'll wrap up with this because there's so many names. I mean, you got Tre'Davious White that is still out there. Hunter Renfrow. Zeke is still out there, and I guess you probably don't want Zeke because you already got Eckler. Xavion Howard. Hollywood Brown, who's got history with Cliff. Are there any former Commanders who you are interested in?
Not interested in any former Commanders.
No one else you'd re-sign?
No.
I got one.
I think Reeves was the only one that I was willing to.
I got one.
You're going to say Kendall?
No, I'm not.
Ooh.
I'm going to tell the people what's trending, and then I'm going to wrap up the show by telling you next. Ooh, I did a professional tease, Anthony. Welcome back to the Hoffman Show, where we have breaking news that we do not have a lot of time to react to because Maryland basketball is coming at the top of the hour. But we got a big one. Yeah, a real actual big name who matters a lot has just agreed to terms with the Washington Commanders. Bobby Wagner, the all-pro linebacker, who, by the way, still has it, still good, has agreed to terms. 1-year deal with the Commanders. Of course, played for Dan Quinn on those Super Bowl teams in Seattle. And I didn't think this was going to happen because I thought they were done at linebacker. I thought that Frankie Louvu and Jamin Davis were going to be their guys. But we'll see how they line it up. But like, Louvu is a weapon piece. He is a move piece. You can do a lot of different things with him. And with the different packages that teams play now and the creativity in that defensive coaching room, there is a ton of possibility. But Louvu hasn't necessarily proven himself as a call the signals, get everybody organized Mike linebacker to the extent that obviously the best middle linebacker of the last decade and a half has. Wagner, going back to those Seattle teams, has been as good as it gets in the middle. He and Fred Warner, the standard centers forever in the NFL at this point at that position. And Wagner was PFF's second best linebacker against the run in terms of grade that they gave him last year. So he is every bit still there. And, is this defense going to be different than what they ran in Seattle? Of course, absolutely. Dan Quinn didn't run the same defense in Dallas that he did in Atlanta and Seattle. But I'm assuming a lot of the language and a lot of the principles are similar. And he is yet another pros pro who you can rely on to be a positive force in the building. Someone who you can rely on to get everybody on the same page. Your communication on defense is now set because Bobby freaking Wagner is calling the signals for you with that green dot. And then you can use Louvu all over the place. You can use Jamin all over the place. Now, I do think that people have gotten a bit out over their skis when it comes to Jamin, to an extent, Louvu. These guys are not Micah Parsons. Nobody is. Micah Parsons is essentially a full-time defensive end that they creatively use to develop matchups across the defensive line as a pass rusher in certain situations. Louvu and Davis are not that. They are going to line up at edge sometimes, perhaps. But that will be more of as a blitzer. They will be out there with a lot of other defensive linemen and then some other linebackers. It will not be like, oh, he is lining up as a defensive end. Jamin Davis or Frankie Louvu are never putting their hand in the dirt in the way that Micah Parsons does. So it's not that, but the more creativity and the more move pieces you have, the more creative you can have and generate pressure, which is the name of the game. And they're going to do that this year without traditional edge players. They don't have a Parsons. They didn't sign Daniil Hunter. Yes, Dante Fowler has some history of getting after the quarterback. Dorrance Armstrong, the last couple of years, has had 16 total sacks between the 2 years. They have some guys with pass rush juice, but you need the guys that threaten. And Bobby Wagner allows Louvu and to an extent Jamin to be those guys. And I am fascinated to see how they line it up. I think sometimes they're going to have 3 down linemen. Sometimes they'll have 4. Sometimes they'll have 5. They'll mug the A gaps. They now have the ability to do a lot of stuff. And, by the way, I haven't even mentioned Jeremy Chin, who they signed, who I think is going to live in the box. So they have versatile pieces, and now the centerpiece that kind of is the sun at the center of that ecosystem that all these other pieces will rotate around. Your Quan Martins, your Jeremy Chins, your Frankie Louvus, your Jamin Davises, but also your Deron Payne and John Allens. Those guys can also line up inside, outside, have some position flex in a good way. Position versatility. I'm sorry, that's the term we promised we would use, not position flex. Position versatility, because we are scarred by position flex from last year. But you need something that is central, that anchors all of that. Bobby Wagner is that anchor. And now, breaking news, moments ago, the Commanders have that anchor, and it is as good of an anchor as you could have possibly asked for, maybe in the whole league, not named Fred Warner, and certainly available in this stage of free agency. And I love getting a veteran to be that guy who has seen a bunch and can keep everything organized, as opposed to seeing if you can get lucky and find one in the draft. And maybe you still draft one that can train under and go to Bobby Wagner school for the future. But this is really a phenomenal job by certainly Adam Peters. It gets credit as the general manager, but this has got to also be the Dan Quinn effect as well, as they have that personal relationship. I would also add that it is very clear that guys want to be here, and that is massive. Anthony, how much time do we have left in the show? 10 seconds?
We have 40 seconds.
40 seconds.
55-30. Yep.
55-30. All right, so we have 30 seconds. Anthony, I will give you like 15 of them because you are hyped about this move.
To be honest, Craig, I'm at a loss for words. I still haven't even wrapped my head around the signing, but I said this early in the show. What if we get Bobby Wagner? And look, there it is.
What else do you want to say? Anthony, you have the power. What else?
All right, what if we get Tyron Smith? What if we get Stephon Gilmore, Xavier Howard?
Anthony, you moron. The correct answer is, what if we win the lottery?
What if we win the Super Bowl?
Oh, my God. We'll see you tomorrow.
The team.